Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to New Filmmakers LA. My name is Larry LeBeau, and I am the Executive Director here at New Filmmakers LA. We're so excited to be co-presenting today's series of panels in partnership with Telefilm Canada. And these panels are built around providing access and insight for Canadian filmmakers and creatives around the process of qualifying for and campaigning for the Academy Awards, more popularly known as the Oscars. So we're very excited to kick off the event today with a special message from our partners at Telefilm Canada. Please check it out.
Welcome to the New Filmmakers Los Angeles Film Festival. Telefilm Canada is a proud partner of the New Filmmakers LA, and we are thrilled to support the In Focus programs with an emphasis on Canadian cinema's features and shorts. Telefilm Canada is a Crown corporation dedicated to the promotion, financing, and development of Canada's film industry. The global market plays a huge role in the success of Canadian films, and year over year, we support Canadian features and shorts as they navigate their way through award season. Today's panels are being presented in an effort to shed light on navigating an Oscars campaign. These panels explore relevant topics, including award season press, publicity, qualifying exhibition, both through film festivals and through theatrical runs. Please enjoy the panel discussion.
All right, another round of applause, everybody, for our partners at Telefilm Canada. Very, very excited to have them presenting this today. So we're going to kick off today with qualifying your film, conversation with exhibitors and qualifying festivals. We've got a great lineup, got a great moderator for you, so it should be a really good session. We're going to kick off with a 60-minute moderator-led discussion, and our moderator is going to take us through a conversation with our panelists. During this conversation, we want to encourage all of you to maximize engagement by chatting in the chat with each other or talking about the subjects being covered during the panel. We also would definitely encourage you to keep on your camera if you can, so you guys can get to know each other and so our panelists can see you during the session. Following this moderator-led discussion, we're going to turn around to all of you, our audience, for a quick 30-minute interactive Q&A. This is a chance where you're going to have the moment to ask whatever question it is you had. And we do encourage you throughout this session to write down any questions that you have so that you can ask them during that Q&A. At the bottom of your screen, you're going to see a raise hand feature. So whenever you want to be placed in queue to ask your question during that audience Q&A, go ahead and hit that raise hand button, and that's going to place you in queue. Again, we do recommend jotting down any questions that you have that come up throughout the moderator-led session so that you can ask it during that Q&A. If for any reason you don't have access to a microphone, you can always chat your question to New Filmmakers LA, and our staff member Andrew will be asking your question for you. And we just ask that since we are maximizing engagement by trying to keep our videos on, that you do keep in mind that if your video is on, we can see you and we can see your background throughout the session. With that, I'm very excited to introduce today's moderator, a filmmaker, producer, and nonprofit executive, my friend, Christopher Raxter. Please join me in welcoming Christopher, everybody.
Hey, everyone. It is nice to meet you. And I would love to start out with some thanks. Larry LeBeau and his team at New Filmmakers Los Angeles and everyone at Telefilm Canada. They are consistently amazing supporters of storytellers and especially emerging voices. And I am grateful that they continue to put together panels like that to make sure that you and I are learning everything we can about how to have a successful filmmaking career. We have three terrific, sorry about that. We have three terrific panelists today. I'm going to let them tell you more about themselves because I will never do them justice. And I'll start out with Hebe Tabachnik.
And hello everybody. And I'm really excited and honored to be here. And I'm just waiting for questions. I'm trying to help you, all of you, achieve what you're looking for. So thank you again, New Filmmakers LA, Larry, and of course, pleasure to have Christopher moderating this.
Thank you, Hebe. Can you tell everybody just a little bit about your background and what you're doing now?
I'm a filmmaker. I am originally from Argentina, but I've been living in the United States for the last 21 years. And it's almost the same time I've been a programmer for several festivals, including at some point Sundance and Los Angeles Film Festival. Currently, I am senior programmer for the Seattle International Film Festival, the Palm Springs International Film Festival, the artistic director of Cine Latino Minneapolis St. Paul, and also senior curator of the Cartagena Film Festival in Colombia. And in the last 3 years, pandemic included, I jumped back into producing, and I have 2 films in the circuit right now, one Brazilian called Valentina, one Argentinian Uruguayan called the Perfect David, that just premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival.
Congratulations. Ben Thompson, if you can introduce yourself.
That's me. Hi, I'm Ben Thompson. I'm the shorts programmer at the Tribeca Film Festival. There's actually 2 of us. There's myself and my colleague Sharon Badal, who has escaped to Hawaii after we've just finished our most recent edition of the Tribeca Film Festival. I've been at the festival since 2003 and have been the shorts programmer since 2010. So I've watched a lot of shorts in that time, and it's lovely to meet everybody here, and I'm hoping we can give you some good advice.
Thanks, Ben. And Gregory Gardner.
Hi, my name's Gregory Gardner, and I am the CEO of Double Exposure Distribution. We started our company around 2005, but at that time I was a booker for Laemmle Theaters. I've been booking for Laemmle from about 1989 until 2017. Part of my job at Laemmle was to get films put into theaters in order to get them eligible for the Oscars. We did that free of charge when I first started doing this. And then something happened in the 90s. Everybody became a filmmaker, and we just got inundated. It was the golden age of indie cinema. We got inundated with shorts, and we had to start charging people, unfortunately, in order to play their films. And it just grew and grew and grew. And thank God everybody's a filmmaker now. And thank God there's so many wonderful, wonderful films that we can all see and access. And thank God, today's generation, they're all filmmakers. We all have the tools. When I started, it was very expensive. Now we can all do it. So this is an exciting time to be a filmmaker. Thanks.
Thanks, Gregory. I'm going to dive right in and throw the first question out to everybody. Most of these are open to the 3 of you, so please jump in. But I think there is not necessarily a lot of clarity between qualifying via a festival or qualifying via theatrical. And I would love to hear, how you see this different in what you've seen done. What is the difference between the two?
Would you like me to start?
You can jump right in.
That'd be great. Qualifying via festival, you have to win, and there's only a few. Well, there are festivals that if you win that festival, not every festival that plays shorts is eligible for that, and basically anyone that wants to get their film qualified for the Oscar and wants to play it in a theater can do that. Very few films, fortunately or unfortunately, are turned down. Movie theaters are actually happy to be able to play your film. They will not always attach it to a feature. Sometimes it'll be played separately, but it will play, it will become eligible, and people will get a chance to see it on the big screen. So, yeah.
I'm going to jump in, as part of the Seattle International Film Festival. Seattle has shorts and features in competition, and the winners of the jury awards. And this is basically the key thing in general for when we're talking qualifying awards and festivals. First, you have to be a qualifying festival, and then depending on the festival, the Academy decides, which of the jury awards in that festival can qualify. In the case of, for example, Seattle, the best animated short, the best animated documentary, and the best animated action short, both over 15 and below 15 minutes. The jury awards, not audience, not anything else, qualify directly to submit the short to the Oscars. And in the case of Palm Springs, I'm not part of the Shorts Film Fest, but we're sort of part of the same organization, and is very similar. The jury awards in those categories, animation, documentary, and fiction, are the ones qualifying. So whenever you're looking to submitting to a festival, there is a list at the Academy site. And in the case of the United States, there are more than 40 festivals that offer the qualifying awards. And it's, they're in their website, so I don't need to, go over it. But it's an interesting way. Of course, it's more competitive if you think about it, but it's certainly a very good way to get your short ready for submission for the Oscars.
One thing I wanted to jump in and add as well, there are two kind of branches, depending on whether you have a short documentary film or a short live action. The Academy has two separate branches that deal with each of those. So it's, as Hebe quite rightly pointed out, there is a list, so you can look down and see which festivals qualify for, but there are also two lists to look over, depending on what type of film you have.
And
yes, and there's also animated shorts too.
And I'm going to add, of course, when I say only 40 festivals or over 40 festivals in the United States, there are many, many more worldwide. So if you haven't been able to get into an American festival, but you're in like Cartagena or Guadalajara or many other festivals in the rest of the world, those also have qualifying awards. So just check it out.
And Gregory mentioned this briefly, and you froze for a second, but just to be really clear so people know, not every qualifying festival qualifies you in every category. So what's really important is to go down through the Academy's entire list of qualifying film festivals to make sure you understand. And, you know, I would love your thoughts in terms, everyone's in terms of, does it matter where you start in terms of a film festival, if this is something you're gunning for? Or what can you do to sort of increase your chances to potentially be a jury award winner?
I'm happy to
Please jump
in at the start. Yeah, so there's, I think from last count, and I haven't looked at it for a while, there were well over 100 for short live action and animation festivals that qualify worldwide. I think there's less docs, maybe it's around 60 or 70. And I think just like planning for a film festival, it's, you know, you really have to look at your calendar and look at your festival strategy, because especially in major film festivals, they are less likely to consider the film if it has played kind of 20 different festivals before. So kind of taking a look at the festivals where you might want to screen as well. And I think that's really important. There's so many festivals on the qualifying list that you can really go down and say, oh, okay, that's really interesting. You know, I've never been to Seattle and I want to go to Seattle and it's a great place. And so that's going to be on my list. And I think that's in May, if I'm right, or it used to be in May.
Yeah, now we move to April.
Okay. So and Tribeca is in April. So, okay, so I can screen one of these and then I can go to like Sundance or whatever, but looking at that as a whole kind of schedule and starting to build your strategy around that, rather than just kind of saying, okay, I'm just going to apply to all of these, because you will run out of money or you'll spend kind of 10 times what you actually spent on the film just applying to awards festivals.
I would like to add that, you know, following what you're saying, Ben, is that a lot of the festivals that are qualifying festivals do not require the premiere of the short. So, of course, it takes some time, and it's one of the things I always suggest people, whether you're, you know, submitting to qualifying or not qualifying any festival, you have to read what are the guidelines for that particular festival and see, you know, how you qualify, etc. And in the case, for example, of Seattle, I mean, we never ask for premieres, and you know, you get into competition, and you know, that's fine. You could have played 200 festivals before Seattle, and it's fine. But of course, there are other festivals that do require the premiere. So it's just part of your work when you are submitting to festivals to just read the guidelines. And when you do this strategy, probably you will look at the festivals that, like, you know, actually do require that premiere, and eventually submit to those first. But there are many, many, many qualifying festivals that, and I will say, I think I'm not mistaken, at least in the time I was working at Sundance didn't require premiere either. So you will have films that had played in much smaller festivals before, and it was okay too. So it's just a matter of reading the guidelines.
Gregory, I'm going to have a specific question for you in a moment, but I want to sort of unpack this a little more in terms of festival strategy. Then, Gregory, I'm going to ask you how it relates to your strategy. So, you know, oftentimes features are going to be more restrictive in terms of festivals and wanting premieres versus shorts. How do you think it matters? How do you balance wanting to premiere at the most prestigious you can get into with also knowing this one particular festival is really my community, and I know they'll respond even more intimately. So for example, I used to run Outfest. You know, everybody wants to premiere at Sundance, but Outfest is also an Academy qualifying festival for shorts. So you might be more likely to get a jury that is much more sympathetic because it is much something they relate to more. Do you think it matters, that combination, or do you think there's a particular strategy in picking specific festivals that ups your chances of at least getting nominated for a jury award? I mean, is there a trick? And if there isn't, that's fine, but I'd love your thoughts. Or not. Gregory.
No, I'm sorry. This is for me. Oh, I'm so sorry. It was about festivals.
No, it's not for you, but I want you to, but please, if you have a thought on
absolutely.
It,
you know, as far as I know, everybody wants to, would rather screen at Outfest than Sundance. Are you kidding? Outfest is very prestigious. And yeah, and so is Sundance. You know, I know a lot of people that have screened at Sundance, but they were more excited to be in Slam Dance because Slam Dance was their people. That, as you mentioned, that was their community. That is the festival where they feel like they, you know, will get recognized and they'll be able to build support, meet people that might be helpful. Different festivals have different flavors, and it's all good if you can get into a festival. That is great. I don't think that we should be going into festivals with the idea that we're doing this in order to become eligible for the Oscars. We're going into festivals because we want community. We want people to see our film. We want to see other people's films. We want to have a party. We want to get to know people, something that we so desperately miss now. You'll go to different festivals and see some of the same films, and you'll build great friendships. The festival circuit is amazing and it's wonderful. And every festival has its own little special thing about it. So qualifying, if you qualify at a festival, that's fantastic. If you don't, you come to me or you go to a theater or something. I don't think that qualifying theatrically should be your first choice. If you've got a film that's getting into festivals, enjoy the festival run.
That is the perfect answer, and leads me to sort of move over more to you in terms of distribution. How do you work with a film, or what's your take on, you know, how to get a film qualified? What does that mean in terms of theatrical qualifications, and sort of what sort of commitment would an independent filmmaker who's not with the distributor and is working with you, what are you expecting of them as well?
I'm not completely clear on the question. I really want to say that you can open theatrically and versus a festival. You can play theatrically for a week. You need it once a day for a week for a short film, and no one might see your film. You could take out an ad. No one still might see your film. Ads don't necessarily bring people in the door. What brings people in the door is if you ask people to come, if you get your friends and family and everything. Unfortunately, the press isn't going to necessarily write about your film if it's a short. So at the end of the day, the qualification run just becomes, you know, something that you do to fulfill an Academy obligation. It's that's your only real strategy in it. Although I use theatrical as a marketing tool. For the Academy always wanted, they're not so much anymore, but always wanted shorts to have some kind of ad. So we'd take out a big ad in the LA Weekly or LA Times, and people would notice that your film's playing. Or it's listed on the theater's website or something like that. But getting people into the theater to pay money to see your short is a little bit tricky, especially in a city like New York or Los Angeles, where there's a million things going on. People aren't necessarily looking for a short to go down to a Limley or Landmark to see. Does that answer the question?
That does. Taking a look at the difference between shorts and features, is it more important to try with features in a theatrical run, even if they've been through a festival, maybe didn't get a jury award, but you think there's some chances? What is the difference, or is there a difference in a theatrical run for features?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Festivals do not qualify features for the Academy, as far as I know. It's only shorts, so that's a big difference. I mean, you can qualify for submission for the Oscars through festivals, but not for features. Sorry, I just wanted to.
No, that's the whole purpose of this, is to answer those questions for people.
Sorry, Greg, that I said, because I it's important to make the difference if anybody's thinking of submitting a feature, thinking about qualification, the road for qualification in the feature. And I'm sure Gregory has a lot of information about that.
Yeah, features are a different ballgame completely. The shorts committee at the Academy, I'm not sure how they're doing it today, especially post-pandemic, but what they would do in the past, and I hate to give away their secrets, but they would sit in a screening room, the shorts committee, with flashlights. And the short had to play a certain amount of time. I'm not sure what it was, maybe 10 minutes. And then after 10 minutes, if it's not a film that most of the members wanted to see, they would turn on their flashlight and the Academy would turn off the film and they would go to the next one, depending on how many flashlights came on. Again, I don't know that they're doing that today, but it's a different process. Feature films, you definitely want to use your theatrical to get notice for your film. You definitely want to get a review, which you can't even do with a short. You definitely want to take out some kind of advertising or something. You want to build awareness because it's a big committee of people that are going to pick and choose which films they're going to watch, and they're going to pick the films that they've heard of. So how do you get your film heard of? You've got to hire a publicist. You've got to pay some money with advertising, and it helps if you're getting some good reviews. Because, at the end of the day, there's a lot of films that qualify, and for some of them, honestly, the Academy looks at them and says, "Why? Why?" So it's really, really important, I think, to think about your film and say, is this something that the Academy is going to like? Am I serving a good purpose by trying to get this eligible? Because theatrical is expensive. Getting a short qualified, not so expensive, but getting a short feature, if you want to do it right, it's going to cost some money. And a filmmaker has to set aside marketing expenses and exhibition expenses these days, along with production expenses, if they want to get noticed and they don't have a distributor off the bat.
I would imagine, I have obviously in an American not as familiar with Canadian system, but luckily when there are organizations like Telefilm and government in Canada, I would imagine there is some form of support when somebody that could be applied to once you get to that sort of run. So I think Canadians have a particular advantage over some of the Americans in that standpoint. And I double checked, and there are actually feature length qualifying festivals. So for documentary and for narrative. I think what's really interesting to dig into around this, even though Canada is a different country, do Canadian films qualify as an international film? Do they qualify as a regular narrative film? Gregory, is there a difference, and what are the rules around that?
I'm not an expert on international rules, and I know that they do change, but I really don't think that a Canadian film has to I think it can qualify in most categories, as can any international film qualify in almost all the categories that a Hollywood film or an independent film from America can. Sometimes the international the award is just icing on the cake because they're still eligible for Best Picture, Best Actor, and whatnot. Canadian film, I think, would be the same.
I think if I talked to somebody who qualified international, I think from what I understand, the biggest difference is the amount of the film that is non-English language. The award is definitely focused on non-English language. So it would need a clarifier, but let's say you're from Quebec and it's in French. This is where I would drill down, and sometimes even, give the Academy a call. They do have folks there who will pick up the phone and answer questions for you. So, obviously the guidelines on the site are where you start, but it helps to talk to people, and that's part of your networking and getting known, talking to other filmmakers who have been through that experience. And, sort of to go back to Ben and Hebe, has there been somebody or you have seen who you think has done a really great job of getting attention on the festival level that might have led to a jury award? Do you think that there's a way to up your visibility at a festival to look towards a jury award?
That's a tough question.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the answer is.
One thing I would say is that, one of the things that I see, at least in most of the festivals I work with, sometimes the filmmakers and producers tend to think that once they are in a festival, it's like everything is done, like they don't need to do anything else. And, they are kind of expecting, things to happen. And the reality is that you have to do a lot of, stuff around, each presentation you have. And if you have the opportunity to go to, to be selected in a festival, you have to let people know about it. Be there as much as you can. One of the things that always happens is, most of the time, especially with shorts, you don't have any money left. Which is really a mistake because, it's a moment where you should be going to festivals. And, I know we're talking about qualifying for the Oscars mostly, but, the being in a festival is more than just qualifying, because it's the community, is the connections, is the network, is, meeting other artists, getting to know people who might be collaborators in the future. It's much bigger, and of course it's the audience, which is absolutely something that there's nothing comparable. So going back into what you can do in terms of making your short more noticeable is the fact that you have to let people know about it, because the reality is that whether it's a short film festival, just shorts, or it's an international film festival that has shorts and features, your film is going to be among many, many other films. And you need to, it's like when you're like small and you have to kind of do a lot of noise to be noticed. And so that being, letting everybody know about the film, and, getting, your connections, to whoever, even if it's a small outlet, covering interviews, blogs, of a friend of yours. So, I mean, you cannot influence the jury. There is nothing you can do. All of us, I'm sure, Ben and Gregory, you have sat in countless of juries, and there is one thing that you cannot do is, do anything to convince a juror of anything. But definitely you can work so the most of, the majority of the people possible in that particular festival is aware of your short. And, I know the story of a film. It wasn't a short, it was a feature that played at Palm Springs. maybe like 6 years ago. And I remember the director, he talked to everyone. And literally at the time of the screening, the taxi driver, the coffee barista, the servers in all the restaurants, everybody knew about that film. It was just unbelievable. He was signing autographs in Palm Springs, and it wasn't even, you know, a film with stars or anything. It was just like he would be talking about his film to everybody he was encountering. And I think that's really the sort of the attitude regarding your film, because the problem, not the problem, the number of content, not the number of content, but the content out there, it's an ocean of content. It's massive everywhere. And so you have to do everything possible to make sure that people actually know about the film and the story and, you know, whatever qualities you think about it. So it's not really one thing, it's just working. And my suggestion, you can start working from the moment you start writing about a story you're going to shoot. The main mistake that most of the filmmakers, shorts or features, do is waiting until the film is done to actually start kind of outreaching and seeing what's going on with the film. And this is something you have to start from the get-go. Start building that community, that support, that sort of audience around your story. And there are so many, I mean, social media made it so easy these days to actually build all of that.
Thank you. And that sort of takes me to my next question. And Ben, I'll sort of start with your thoughts. You know, a lot of what we've been talking about so far is either midway in this process, which is you've gotten into a festival, you're trying to get an award, or you've completed your festival and you're working with Gregory to get your film out there. But it all starts with, how are you getting into a festival? And I think it's always important for us to look at that. And Ben, I'd love to know more about your thoughts, like do's and don'ts. What have you seen that's been really effective? How do you, as a curator and programmer, find these stories? You know, how does one of these filmmakers start?
Well, I also wanted to touch upon, Gregory made a really interesting point earlier where he said, you know, filmmakers don't go to film festivals to qualify for the Academy. And so many of the Tribeca winners that I've spoken to over the years, most of them are not aware that they are now qualified for the Academy by winning Tribeca. It's not, that wasn't their aim in getting into the festival. They wanted to share their film with an audience. They wanted a platform. They wanted to share their art. Some of the do's and don'ts, I think it really starts with research, and Hebe also touched on this wonderfully, kind of looking to see where your film can play and doing a little research about the festival. You know, what kind of films do they show? Is your film a short animation? And, you know, does the festival you're submitting to have like a dedicated animation category? I was going to say again on the jury question, Tribeca is a qualifying festival for short animation, and we program a very small amount of it. So I think this year was 8 films were competing. So 8, if you get into Tribeca with a short animation, you have a 1 in 8 chance that, you know, the jury is going to pick that, and then you'll be qualified. Like many of the major festivals receive, and even the smaller festivals, submissions in the thousands, and sometimes it can be, you know, it can be a very scary process, kind of sending your film out and not knowing who's seeing it, what's happening to it, or where it's going. And one thing besides kind of researching the festival is, and this kind of advice depends on the festival, on the programmer. I have a lot of filmmakers who will reach out to me personally and say, hi, I submitted my film. If you have a minute, I would love for you to check it out. This is what it's about. Done. That is a really good way to do it, even if the program is not that interested in engaging with you and is getting thousands of emails. That's a really lovely way to kind of just, you know, raise your hand a little in the crowd. And I watch 100% of those films that come in. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll add it to my watch list. What drives most programmers mad is if you just reach out to them, send them a link and say, can you watch my film? And can you tell me if it's right for Tribeca, or can you tell me if it's right for Seattle? Because it's like just cutting in the line in a Starbucks and just pushing your way to the front and then not even paying for your coffee, like just taking it. So that's one of the don'ts, I think. And I'm sure Hebe is smiling, so I'm sure she can elaborate on some of these as well.
I second everything you said. You know, very short and sweet is always better. And one of the things that you have to remember is that, you know, we work for a festival, or we work for somebody. And when you're asking us to do all those, you know, like reviewing and suggesting, you know, strategy for festivals, etc. And I'm sure Christopher has many anecdotes too. Is like, okay, it's lovely that you think that I know that, and I'm sure we know, but you know, it's a job. It's, you know, you don't, you know, I equate this with having a doctor next, you know, sitting next in your table and just, you know, going for advice. I mean, you go to his office or her office, and it's like, it's a job. This is not just, okay, because you know, we have to give it, away that way. But going back to what Ben was saying, again, I hate to be a little bit of the person that goes back always to the very beginning. Eventually, it's really, everything is the story and how beautifully you were able to make it, and how close to really what you wanted to say and how you wanted to say it is on screen. And so, because there is so many out there, and like Ben says, there are blind submissions, people submitting to the festivals. There are filmmakers we know because we've been following their careers, because somehow we met them in another part, or we follow a certain a specific region, and we focus on that, or is there a certain subject that we're looking for. But what really it's outstanding. I remember when I was especially when I was working for Sundance, and we were watching thousands of shorts. Interesting enough, that well-made story just jumps up into that long queue. And in that respect, it doesn't matter if there is thousands of emails from you just telling us about it. If your story is really, gutsy in the way of being as, close to that, idea you had, and you put every effort in making it really, the way you want it, we're going to see it. We are going to see it. It doesn't matter how it gets to us. And that's the beauty of, of storytelling and filmmaking. And we can spend hours trying to give recipes of how to get to that. And my sort of suggestion is always, get your hands dirty. Do not let it go away. If you feel like that actor didn't give you what you wanted at that scene, be sure, or I can assure you, we will notice now that when we're watching the film. Or if the script wasn't ready and you started shooting because, oh, I had that location that I really wanted, but I cannot change the dates, we are going to see it. So make sure that you have worked your story as much as you could, and get, like I said, I like the expression, get your hands dirty. I wanna see you behind that story that you're telling. And I'm sure all of us have the experience of watching films after films after films, and then something happens when you see, it could be Romeo and Juliet, and it could be the story, that everybody knows, but there is something about that. There is, the way you're using your actors, or you're putting your camera and your lighting or something that just, grabs your attention. So I really hope everybody who's now listening to this, goes back to whatever they have and look at their, films with that sort of, a little bit more, cold view, and really, see what they have. And because one of the other things that Ben was saying is, know what festivals you're submitting to, know, what your story is about. A lot of the filmmakers do not know what their films are about. So many times. It's
true. Hey, Gregory, did you have something?
I did. I wanted to add that making the great film isn't the end of the game either. You want a stunning graphic. You want, your key art to be just gorgeous and stunning. You want a trailer, perhaps, that grabs people. You want a professionally designed electronic press kit. You want a still photographer on set, so you're not grabbing images from the film for your production stills. All these things matter too, because and a programmer might tell you this. That's the first thing they're gonna, and it's gonna stick with them. Was this look professional, or is this shoddy marketing materials? So also important.
And just to continue on Gregory's point, your description, your logline. I mean, it's again, it varies from festival to festival, programmer to programmer. But Sharon and myself, we read the loglines, we read the descriptions, we scan the database and like, oh, that sounds great, that's interesting. We're going to pull it out and watch it. So just, as and Hebe said this as well, being able to sell your film, articulate what your vision is, helps programmers so much as well.
I think you all have touched on a couple of things that I think are really important. And one actually sort of ties back to a new role I'm starting to see, which is a producer of marketing and distribution. So there is this sort of thought, to Hebe's point, start thinking about this when you're writing. And Ben and Gregory's point, like, you have to have shots on set are so vital. I can't tell you how many times my programmers or somebody else have gotten a screenshot and it just doesn't make the same sense in a catalog or advertising the way a professional photographer who can frame what you need from a marketing aspect. So this sort of idea of, at the same time you're writing that script and thinking about how you're doing it, it's what is your social media plan? What are you capturing? What are the photos behind the scenes, the goofy things? What are you starting on social media before you've even started filming, all the way through? Because it's a long game. Look at your careers as this long game. And you're starting by doing this. Ben said something very important about the conversation with the programmers, that very short, very gracious email goes out to them. It's the start of a relationship. They may not reply even, and it is not because they didn't read your email or want to. It's because they have 800 more shorts to screen before the week is over. So never take it personally, but a little at a time, you're developing a relationship with these people that, as both Hebe and Ben have said, they want to track careers. They want to know who you are, especially when they're looking at a program and say, oh, this would be perfect to fit in. I know this filmmaker. So, I think sometimes we as filmmakers think, here are our curators and programmers, and they're in this untouchable box. We don't want to be pestering or paparazzi, but there are really organic, great ways to develop those relationships over the long haul. It may take a while, but we hope that you have a very long and financially rewarding filmmaking career. So, it is work all along the way. Gregory, Do you track films in festivals, or are most people coming to you as a theatrical specialist?
I go to festivals as much as I can. You know, somebody pointed out there's an ocean of content, but I do enjoy meeting filmmakers at festivals. But people come to me generally because they weren't able to win a specific festival, and you know, they're looking to get their film eligible, and you know, I'll watch it, I'll enjoy it, and but regardless of what my opinion of the film, I will, you know, you can hire me, I will get you film eligible. So that's what I do. So
That's
I love
incredibly
festivals.
important. Yeah, it is 5 minutes till. And we want to leave 30 minutes for Q&A. I want to make sure Hebe or Ben or Gregory, if we have missed something or you didn't have a chance to respond to something, I want to make sure you have a chance to sort of close out any comments before we flip over to Q&A.
No, Christopher, I think you said, you summed up a lot of what Hebe and I were saying. I think that relationship with programmers is very important. And, you know, just conversations like this, you see that we're human beings and we're like not terribly, well, I'm not very intimidating, but and we're approachable and reasonable, and I think, again, I will stress a little on the don't side, you know, don't kind of try and put pressure on people, don't stalk like programmers, you know, one nice email will always be appreciated. Like, I've actually had an instance of a filmmaker talking their way out of contention because just an onslaught of emails, updates, just too much. And it was something that was in contention and then slowly slowly became out of contention. So that's the kind of, you know, you can push it too far.
And I'm going to add to that, you know, once, hopefully you will go to the festivals that have selected your films as much as you can, and as much as you can afford, you know, if they're not, you know, paid invitations, etc. And it's as important what you do during your, you know, time at the festival. And again, without giving names, and I'm gonna say it directly, I have a couple of filmmakers I'm kind of not interested in having ever again in any of the festivals I'm involved with because their obnoxious kind of behavior. And you know, when you are programming, you know, you're thinking of many things, and you know, we take everything in consideration, and we remember, you know, and it takes a lot of time to sort of erase that sort of, you know, bad behavior. But you know, I said two in like thousands of filmmakers, so it's not like I keep grudges. But you have to, you know, to remember that, you know, again, we are human beings, you know, and we like being treated well and, you know, graciously, and that's the thing. But you also want to make sure that, and for us, it's very important. If, you know, if you're a filmmaker and you go to a festival, you know, this applies for anybody. But you see a lot of volunteers, always say thank you to that volunteer. Doesn't matter what that person is doing in the festival. If you're a filmmaker, just say thank you to that person, because that person, believe it or not, maybe he is a volunteer screening of that festival or many others. And that thank you to the person who just, I don't know, maybe takes your ticket at a festival, one day is going to be the head of, I don't know, Sundance. So those kind of things that seems like small potatoes when you're, you know, in the big picture, but I've seen it happening. And again, your, you know, as a filmmaker, you know, your career again starts when you're writing the story, but once the film is out, you know, you are there with the film, and what you do with it, how you present yourself, how your producers present yourself, your cast, what you do with it, you know, how much you help us to help you in a way. It counts. Everything counts. And just one thing, going back to, things that we haven't maybe talked about, do not be pushed by deadlines. If you're not ready for Sundance, I don't know, it's Tribeca, or if it's not Tribeca, it will be South by Southwest or Seattle or Palm Springs or some other festival. Never put a short or a film, regardless of the length, before you feel like the film is ready. It doesn't matter if you miss that particular deadline for that particular festival, because one thing I believe, and probably I think we share this among all of us, there are many festivals, but there is only, most of the time, it's just one opportunity in each festival. It's very rare that we reconsider material. So,
Ben, you had something to add.
I just wanted to say, it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. And we all love films. Like, we want to love your films. Like, that's the starting point. So, think of, that's why we do what we do. Like Gregory, Hebe, everybody. Like, we all love films. We all have that in common. That's our starting point. So.
Beautiful. We are 1 minute after, so let's flip over to Q&A.
Sure.
I believe Andrew is feeding me.
Yeah.
Right.
So Christopher, yeah, I'm gonna go call on people, whoever have their hands up, and if anyone has questions in the chat, please chat it, and then I'll ask it for you. Just a reminder, everyone, raise your hand. It's in the reactions tab. Another reminder, let's try to limit it to 1 or 2 questions max, and also it's not the time to pitch any movie ideas or anything like that. It's just not the time to do it. All right. Well, first up, I have a question here in chat from Kent. Since festival submission fees are quite pricey, especially when they start adding up, is it better to qualify via theatrical qualification or via festival wins? And he actually, there's like a follow-up, I guess, what would be cheaper? So, maybe cheaper isn't the right word. Maybe it's what's the better value, or like what's better to invest in? I'll let y'all take that.
Well, time is money too. You've got to remember that, as well as kindness and energy. But yeah, you're not doing festivals to get eligible for the Oscar. If that's your focus, to get eligible for the Oscar, just play your film in a theater. It's quick, it's easy, and the cost is going to depend, on the theater, but it's going to be 4 digits. It's going to be in the low 4-digit range. So yeah, it might be a little bit more expensive, but it's done. You don't have to think about it. You're going to festivals to be in a festival, which is an amazing experience. And if you win, fantastic. So it's 2 different things.
Agreed. I think that Ben and Hebe really hit a point, which is doing your research, especially with a short film. There may, I am parsimonious with my wallet in films because I've learned my lessons, spending way too much money on entry fees. Do your research as to where it shows. And you know what? Because look at how many festivals Hebe works with. A great short may then be picked up for another festival because they want it, and you've sidestepped an entry fee, that sort of thing. But how much money you are spending and how much time you are spending is something you really need to think through. And I'm a believer they're all right answers. It just depends on your goals.
I agree completely. And it's clear that the problem is that, like you said, if there is no research, people are just sort of shooting in the dark and trying to see what sticks. So you have to have a strategy. And of course, there are so many festivals in the world. I'm not going to talk specifically about the United States, but in the world that are, free, and even super big festivals. So, the screening, the submission fee cannot be the problem, but you have to do your research. And even I would say even more, when you are requesting, which it happens, I'm sure, for Ben, and it happened to you, Christopher, a fee waiver or a deadline waiver, just saying, I did this with all my heart and this and that, that's not quite enough to really warrant a waiver. And one of the problems is that, we have hundreds of those emails, but maybe, if you say something, you tell us a little bit more, or of the story, has something that warrants that, because we sometimes do it, but there are costs related to, of course, the reason why we need those submissions fees, contrary to maybe festivals in other parts of the world that receive a lot of government funding. Most of the festivals here are nonprofit, and it takes time to go over all these submissions. But again, I'd like to very quickly touch about the money spent in theatrical qualifying versus festivals. And I agree with Greg. You don't go just to festivals for qualifying, and you're adding something, whether you win or not. Being selected in a festival is adding to the track record of your film and your career. So I wouldn't put them as two lines that do not touch. It's like, eventually, you will have to think whether your short, merits that qualification, and you will maybe invest in the theatrical, but the festival run always gives you so much more. Just being selected in a festival means that you are special, because you've been selected from 1,000, 4,000, or 10,000, shorts or features out there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was definitely a conversation that I like a question I raised in this session, because I myself, I program for Whistler as well, and then the Vancouver Short Film Festival, and just really wanted to hear from you guys which one's better. Obviously, like as a filmmaker, I'm a huge promoter of my, I also teach at Vancouver Film School as a producing instructor, and I always encourage my students to submit to festivals, because like you said, you definitely get a lot more attention from festivals, but obviously there is that option of, like, I guess for convenience sake, you would do a theatrical release to get qualified if that is the goal or the dream. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Kat. Thank you so much. We're gonna go to Patricia, who has her hand raised. So Patricia, I'm gonna ask to unmute you right now.
Hey, hello, Larry. Hello, everybody. Hello, Ben. Good to see you again. So my question is, I get mixed information regarding publicists and publicity for a qualified short at the Oscars. And some people say you don't need publicity at all. You really have to contact each voter, the list of 800 people. And some other people say, well, publicity really helps get the attention. What would be your take on that?
That's a tough one to answer because it's probably film specific. I will say in general, the Academy frowns on trying to lobby its members or anything that looks like lobbying. So reaching out aggressively is definitely, and not that anybody would, but it's sending a series of emails that would be frowned upon. And could even disqualify you. So I'd be careful about that. And there's a lot of that information on their site. But I think Hebe and Ben are, well, and obviously Gregory are probably more informed about that choice in terms of when it's worth the spend.
Just based on the filmmakers I have spoken to and worked with, it's really kind of down the middle. I've known filmmakers who have not used publicists at all and had fantastic Oscar runs, and filmmakers who have gone to a very specific publicity company and have had great success from that. So I think you were right, Christopher, when you said, it's very dependent on the film and on the project. I think it's also what you feel comfortable with. If you don't feel like you're the best, or I don't want to say best advocate for your own film, but you don't have that kind of necessarily connections in the industry and the people you want to talk to, then going down the publicist route is the best route for you. But if you can kind of advocate for your film, if you know how to get it out, if you know how to generate buzz, then do it.
There's a handful of publicists in town that are fantastic. There's a lot that will take your money, and God knows who these people are. Be careful. Publicity is hit and miss, and everybody knows that. For a short film, I would hire a publicist personally, and this is just my opinion, if it was in order to help build my career, if it was to work on social media or whatnot, doing something like that. I wouldn't necessarily hire a publicist for a short unless I was shortlisted. And we should probably talk about the difference in your campaign between just trying to get eligible and then getting shortlisted, because that's when you really ramp up your campaign. And I think it would be appropriate to approach a publicist that has worked on Oscar campaigns before, if you've been shortlisted, because that's quite an honor in and of itself.
I absolutely agree with what Gregory said. If you're shortlisted, it makes sense. If you're just qualifying, it's probably not really money well spent. However, if you are you have been selected to some important festival, let's say Class A festival, and even if you have a short, I will say think about having a publicist, because it can make a little bit of a difference. And at least, even if it doesn't mean that you're going to get a review, which is possible, very rare. Sometimes they do like a selection. Some outlets will choose, I don't know, 10, 15 shorts on that festival and talk about it. But you will have the opportunity to, through the hands of a publicist, meet some people that might be, interesting along the road. Going back to this idea of starting to sort of put the foundations of relationships that will be very handy and important along the way. So, again, if you get into Tribeca or South by Southwest of Seattle or Palm Springs, and, even if you have a short, I will, strongly suggest having someone help you.
Hey, Patricia, it's Larry. I just wanted to chime in to remind everybody as well that we have our publicity panel at 3:00 today, Pacific time. So we will have 3 of some of the sort of most used publicity companies here in LA. But to balance that conversation out, we will also have a filmmaker who is Canadian, who was nominated for the Academy Awards this year. So he will sort of help to balance out that conversation of what you're going to hear from the publicity side of companies that obviously, both probably do a great job, but also want to be hired for a fee, as well as a filmmaker who's actually gone through the process himself. And that filmmaker is Ben Proudfoot. So I think you'll be able to get some more insight as to that question in the next panel.
Great. All right. Next up is Christian, but it's in chat. So let me read here. All right. How important is the length of a short film? We hear that the shorter the length, the better to get into festivals. but when I look at most of the Oscar nominees for best short film, they tend to be longer than the quote unquote safe length, aka less than 20 minutes. So what's your opinion on that?
Hebe, do you want to go first on this, or?
I am going back to story. Your story has a length, and that's going to be 3 minutes or 5 or 15 or 45. And so I think it's really a myth, and it's been around for many years. You know, there's like a golden length for a short. Of course, we can explain why sometimes shorter shorts get into a festival. And I'll explain it this way. When you have a shorts program, and a shorts program, let's say it's around 90 minutes, and you think about, you know, what shorts you're selecting, you know, when you think in terms of 15-minute short, well, you can have, you know, 4 or 5 versus maybe, you know, eventually 2 shorts of 45. You know, those are mathematics that we do take into consideration. That said, a short has to be as long as it's needed. And the problem is that, and we call this the short that is in, you know, like a good short of 15 in the box of 30, or the other way around. Sometimes, you know, a short, it's 15 minutes and it should have been 30. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know the length of the last Oscar nominated or winners, but what I can tell you is that in a short, it's a little bit different from a feature. Every frame counts. Literally, it's like a short story. I always say, you know, those great short story writers, when you read a story that is maybe a page, and you see how every word that they picked, every verb, every adverb, it's really carefully chosen. There is a reason for that. And for short films, it's exactly the same. If a shorts, and I've seen shorts of 3 minutes told, you know, stories that are amazing, and some have been 45. And so I would say, do the story you need to do. And if the story ends up being 7 minutes, go for it. Don't make it 15 because you think 15 is going to be the one that, you know, gets you nominated. Because maybe you need 3 7-minute shorts, and eventually one day you'll make a short that it's 25 that gets nominated. I mean, I know we're talking about qualifying and nominations, etc. But like Ben said, we love film and we love stories, and we love good stories that are told in the length they need to be told. That's a lot of secret there.
And if you can make an impact in 7 minutes, you probably have something pretty special. I mean, the one kind of short that I remember that I kind of broke all the rules for the Oscars was Do I Have to Take Care of Everything, which was finished, which is like a 7-8 minute like comedy. Like, it's not supposed to be the sort of thing that the Academy is interested in, but there it is. And so often when Sharon and I are looking at shorts, we see things that we're like, oh yeah, this is going to win awards. This is going to be perfect for the Oscars. It's, you know, but it's too long for us, and it's not quite what we're looking for in terms of our programming. So we haven't selected it, but it's, you know, it's really, you can have things that that are quite short and feel very long, and things that are longer that just move so fast and kind of take you through that story and take you through that journey. And those, I think, are the ones that really tend to stand out for programmers.
And again, talking about worldwide, because I know in, you know, again, not specifically talking about Oscar shorts, but in some of the festivals in the United States tend to go more for the shorter, a little bit shorter side of the equation. In many festivals, you know, around the world, that's not the case, and even the definition of shorts, you know, changes. And so you festivals that, you know, will take shorts that are, you know, up to 60 minutes. So what we would call a mid-length feature. So just concentrate on your story, and, you know, think of that sort of every frame, like I said, and be sure that it needs to be there, or you're not putting something there that needs to be in your story.
Great. All right. Next up is visual aesthetic. A visual aesthetic. I'm going to ask to unmute you right now.
Hello.
Hello, we could hear you.
Hi. Okay. I'm a screenwriter and director, and I'm just wondering whether there may be qualification issues for festivals in general if I choose to use a non-union talent while making an ultra low budget short. And I'm wondering if anyone has any experience with that.
From my experience has been nobody looks at that other than unions.
Yeah.
The unions are the only one that care.
Yeah.
But
to Hebe and Ben's point, we're looking for great stories.
Okay.
And however you made it, that's your secret.
Okay.
But I'm just going to say that all of the contractual elements of a short
Good point.
a role in the distribution when you get into the selling the short for a profit.
Okay.
Festivals, we do not care where you got the music, if you hire or not. I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's how it works. I mean, we are not looking into copyright or anything.
Mhm.
But the moment you're having a conversation with someone who is interested in buying your short or feature, you will have to prove that you have the ownership on that, and that means all the paperwork and paper necessary, but not for qualification. And I don't think I mean, maybe Gregory can chip in here. I don't think it's something the Academy looks into.
Not at all.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
also, just to finish up on that point of music and copyright, I mean, for a festival like Tribeca, many of, I think, A-list festivals might ask you to sign a release at this before screening the film, just to say that, you are saying that you have kind of the copyright and whatever you need. It's purely up to you to say that. We won't kind of check beyond that, but obviously if someone's in a screening and said, hey, that Beatles track, I own that, like, then you would be responsible. But yes, as they said, festivals don't really look at that, and we typically won't check. So
I will bring up another point. It's really good you've brought this up across the board. The other place you get caught out is online. If you're playing YouTube or any of those other channels, they have music licenses, their algorithms are checking. It could get you pulled down. It could get you in trouble with ASCAP or BMI. So just be careful about those things.
Yeah, I think for music, I have actually, my friends are music producers and I'm a music
Perfect.
producer too. So I'll probably be using original music, but
Perfect.
thank you so
Just
much.
get a simple piece of paper that says, I allow you to mute everything in writing.
Yeah. Thank you.
You said something that just triggered a thought that I just want to have said before we wind up, and that is, to be eligible for the Oscars, you cannot have streamed your film online anywhere.
Important point.
It's a really important point. It's got to be in the festival and or theatrical prior to any streaming online for it to be eligible in any category.
And one thing we haven't, of course, touched upon is of course, festivals do not rate anything. And so, that's something that comes up, again, along the way. So, you have to be aware of your content, and, we don't mind, and eventually we will put disclaimers if there is anything inappropriate. But again, we don't look at that. But somebody might, if you're like, again, in the business of selling the short.
Great. I think we have time for one more question. Mohammed left a question. I'm going to try my best to sort of interpret what he's saying here. So it looks like he's made a couple films that have won awards at festivals, has screened a ton of places. I think what he's asking, perhaps, is it worth it? Like, is going to all these festivals worth it, winning all these awards, or are there certain like festivals that have awards that mean more than others? Like, I think that's what he's trying to say here. So I'm gonna try that.
I think if you,
I'm gonna jump and just say,
yeah,
try to get to as many festivals as you can, and of course there are a list of priorities, and there are A list, B list, D list, Z list, but for shorts, just get your short as in as many festivals as you can, and try to go at every festival you can, even if it's the smallest festival in the smallest town in a very far away place, if you have the opportunity, because you don't know who you're going to meet there. You don't know what's going to happen and who is there. And again, and I'm saying this, maybe the guy who's running this very tiny, small festival in 5 years is, the guy in front of you buying your short, introducing you to somebody, producing your feature, or I don't know, heading a festival, much more bigger festival. So go festivals and markets. That's the other, we didn't touch on this, but market for shorts or features are really important. And if you've never been to Clermont-Ferrand, you should at least once. As a short filmmaker, it's like going to the Mecca. You have to go to Clermont-Ferrand, which is the kind of short film in the world, because you're going to meet everyone who is who, is the who is who in shorts from all over the world, and you're going to make a lot of friends, and it's also a very fun festival. And of course, because it's shorts, shorts are the king. You feel like you're, on top of the world.
And so often the smaller festivals are where you can have the most amazing experiences, because like the whole town, the whole kind of community gets involved. And those are many of the filmmakers I've met and encountered over the years have such great kind of stories of recounting. And I want to say something about Hebe's, like, just going to festivals as well, even if you don't have a film in there, just to see what they are showing and what they are programming. And for years, we had a gentleman who would come up to Sharon or myself after each Tribeca screening. He came to all the shorts programs and he was like, I submitted this year, I didn't get in, but I'm gonna get in next year after year. And then he had like 2-3 films in a row, year after year in Tribeca. So, and because he was watching what we programmed, and he was like, he was telling us very New York-based stories and kind of seeing what was out there, and it just made a huge difference to his filmmaking. And yeah, that's the way you can do it.
You want colleagues. It can be a lonely business when you're chugging away for years and years, and these filmmakers become your colleagues. One thing I will say also is, don't go as in debt as I have, getting yourself to all these festivals. I think I'm still paying off a credit card from like 2003 with my submissions. So, just know how much you really can afford to spend on this stuff. It matters. Your personal security and well-being matters. And maybe that money is better served putting towards your next short. But I also think, going back to something everyone has said about doing your research, you're probably all familiar with Film Freeway. That's really, where you go to read the back end of it. Take a good look at some of these festivals, especially the small ones. One thing that comes up is the Laurel Factory. Some festivals who are charging submission fees, who really are not filmmaker centric, but they're accepting your film just to get you a Laurel and get your fee. Talk to other filmmakers, they'll know who they are. Go through Film Freeway, you'll get an idea of who they are. But I've been scammed that way too. So mostly I'm saying, don't fuck up the way I did.
Amazing. Well, Christopher, you have been an incredible moderator. Round of applause for Christopher as our moderator, everybody. And Hebe, Ben, and Gregory, you guys are awesome. This was such valuable advice. Attendees, we have our next panel in 30 minutes. So that's going to be with 3 different publicists who do award campaigns, as well as a Canadian Oscar-nominated filmmaker from this year, Ben Proudfoot. We hope to see all of you guys in 30 minutes. A quick surprise for those of you who haven't checked your email in the last hour, you will see that we have provided all of you with free passes to this weekend's festival. We hope that you guys will use them. It's a $30 value. You guys will have access to 2 industry panels tomorrow with those passes. Those are with the producer and writer of both Barry on HBO and Atlanta on FX networks, as well as the head of film for Black Bear Pictures, which of course has done a number of Canadian-led productions. And then on Saturday, we'll be showcasing 3 blocks of Canadian films, both shorts and features, and we'll have Q&As with those filmmakers. So please do register and use that pass tomorrow and Saturday. We hope to see you guys all in 30 minutes for the next panel. Enjoy the break. And again, a round of applause for Christopher, Hebe, Ben, and Gregory. You guys were amazing.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Love
Thanks,
you all so
everybody.
much.
Thank you, guys.